Chapter 171. Mr. Wellis was very clear as to why Leo Kyle did not stand out to handle these things. Instead, they wanted to use him as a pawn. This was because Leo Kyle didn't want his wife to see his dark side. He could not bear to bring Karen Daly, who was a girl under the positive bright sun, to the world of darkness. At first, Karen Daly went behind Leo Kyle's back to see him. In her heart, she had secretly wanted to prevent Leo Kyle from the dark side of this world. This couple was really interesting. They would rather be left in the dark by themselves to protect their significant other. The car stopped in front of the hospital. Kevin Kyle picked Karen Daly up and rushed in. Seeing him with such an anxious expression, Karen Daly simply comforted him. "It only hurts a little. I'll be fine. You don't have to worry about me so much," Kevin Kyle said in a deep voice. "Don't talk, Karen Daly." She just didn't want him to worry about her. Why was he so rude to her? Before he came, he had already contacted the hospital. When he arrived, the hospital had already prepared for their arrival. An experienced doctor gave Karen Daly a thorough examination. When the results came, both her and the baby were all right. The doctor reminded them to be more careful, to not let the pregnant woman's mood swings be too high. Otherwise, it could put their lives in danger. Kevin Kyle sat on the edge of the bed with a cold face, unwilling to speak a word to her. Karen Daly was filled with grievance. She pulled his sleeve and said, "We both are fine. Why are you still mad at me?" Seeing her face, Kevin Kyle rubbed her head and gently said, "If you wanted to come to Beeford City to see Christine Daly, you could have told me. I could make the proper arrangements. Why did you come here without telling me? You are only pregnant for 3 months, which is also the most unstable time if something happened to you or the baby." Until here, Kevin Kyle could not go on. He didn't want to imagine how crazy he would become if anything happened to her or their child. Karen Daly heard everything he said. He felt helpless, but most of it was because of his worries for her. Karen Daly hugged him and buried her head in his arms. She took a light breath and whispered, "I won't let you worry about me or the child anymore." Kevin Kyle held her hand tightly and said, "Karen Daly, no matter what happens in the future, you have to tell me everything." Karen Daly nodded her head. "Okay." In the blink of an eye, a few months quietly passed by, and Karen Daly was 6 months pregnant. She was only 6 months pregnant, but it was obvious that her belly had become particularly big. Karen Daly also looked rounder and healthier, and her skin was still fair and tender. Aunt Anne and Aunt Jen, who were both experienced in this field, claimed that the more beautiful a woman became when she was pregnant, the more likely she would have a daughter. Last month, after Kevin Kyle told the Kyle family that Karen Daly was pregnant, Mia Kyle flew all the way over to help take care of Karen Daly. Now, Mia Kyle's head was on Karen Daly's round belly. She listened carefully and said excitedly, "I think I hear the baby's heartbeat." Karen Daly smiled gently and said, "He must have felt his aunt's love for him and is greeting you." Mia Kyle blinked her eyes and asked, "Karen, can we find out the baby's gender now?" Karen Daly said, "We didn't check for the gender of the child, but we will surely love the baby very much. I think it would be better for the baby to be a girl. If it's a girl, she would be more like you, but if it's a boy, he would definitely be as dull as my brother," Mia Kyle said while she imitated Kevin Kyle's cold personality. Karen Daly was amused by Mia Kyle and burst into laughter. "Mia, your brother is not like that." In fact, in these few months, Kevin Kyle had changed a lot. He now knew better how to comfort others with words. For example, last night, Kevin Kyle did what Mia Kyle did as well. He gently put his head on her belly to hear the baby's heartbeat. What was more surprising was him talking to the baby. "Baby, it's me, Daddy. Answer me if you hear me." Not only that, but he also brought along children's books and patiently told the baby a story. He learned from the doctor that when the fetus was 6 months old, it could already have the ability to memorize, listen, and learn, which was why he started to teach their baby. After that, he would also play some music for the baby every day, as well as telling stories for the baby. In the past, Kevin Kyle would rather be beaten to death than do something so childish, but now he could do it so naturally. Thinking of Kevin Kyle, the smile on Karen Daly's face became even more gentle. It was him who brought light to her life again and gave her warmth, which reminded her that her life could be happy and beautiful. "Sister-in-law, I'm going to join the filming crew tomorrow. Will you go shopping with me?" This time, Mia Kyle was going to a remote holiday house to shoot her video, and it seems that she might not be able to go shopping for a long time, which was why she decided to go all out tomorrow. "All right," Karen Daly answered straightforwardly. Since the start of this month, Kevin Kyle did not allow her to go to the studio. Faye Reed only gave her work once every few days, so she could only stay at home all the time. She was really bored and had wanted to go out for a long time. The fetus had grown for over 3 months, which meant it had passed the critical stage, and it is currently stable. These days she could eat, sleep, run, and walk. If it hadn't been for her belly, no one would have known that she was pregnant. Karen Daly and Mia Kyle had not gone shopping for a long time. As soon as they brought up this topic, they were very excited. They quickly packed their things and went out. It was July, which was the hottest period of the year in Chatterton Town. But it didn't matter. The driver directly sent them to the entrance of the shopping mall. When they entered the mall, the air conditioner blew at their faces, and it didn't feel like it was summer at all. In the shopping mall, Karen Daly could not see anything but baby products. In her eyes, she could only see baby clothes, baby strollers, toys, and so on. Kevin Kyle had already prepared these things early on, and even renovated a room for the baby. All that was left was the arrival of the baby. Karen Daly often counted her days. It was said that every pregnancy takes up to 10 months, but in truth, women usually gave birth after 9.5 months, and her baby was expected to arrive on the 29th of September. It was July now, and there were only 2 months left before they could see the baby. She was really excited. Karen Daly entered the baby supplies store, and Mia Kyle was not annoyed at all. She was not short of anything, and all the things she wanted to use were prepared by specialists. They just enjoyed the fun of shopping. After strolling around for a while, Karen Daly felt a little thirsty. They found a rest area to sit, while Mia Kyle, who could still move easily, went to buy Karen Daly a drink. As soon as Mia Kyle left, 2 men sat on both sides of Karen Daly. She felt a dagger was pointing on her waist. One man lowered his voice and said coldly, "If you want you and your baby to be safe, you'd better follow us obediently." Chapter 172. It was a hot day today. Karen Daly only had on a thin white dress for the pregnant women. The dagger was pressed close against her belly. As long as they gently put forth their strength, the dagger would be inserted into her abdomen, and then her child. Thinking of this, Karen Daly's heart was in chaos. She was so nervous that she just breathed slowly, and her body was so stiff that she dared not move. She did not know why these people were holding her hostage. For the sake of money? If that was the case, she could give all her savings in the past few years to them, as long as the child and she would be safe. Or vengeance. If it was for revenge, who would it be? Karen Daly was so nervous that her mind was in a mess. She couldn't think of anyone else who would cause trouble for them. She looked up, and happened to see a couple passing by, but they did not see anything unusual. There were 2 security guards not far away, but she did not dare to call for help. Once she called for help, made the 2 of them mad. There was no telling what they would do. In a short period of time, Karen Daly thought of many things, and her hands were trembling slightly. But she tried to calm herself down, to not be so scared. Before she was taken away by these 2 men, she must think of a way to leave behind some clues, so that Mia Kyle would know that something had happened to her. She tried for a long time, and finally calmed down a little. She really wanted to pretend that nothing had happened, but her voice was still trembling. She said, What do you want to do? If you want money, I can." "Shut up. If we hear one word from you, we'll cut off your damn tongue." The man with the dagger pressed hard, and Karen Daly felt pain in her stomach. She quickly closed her mouth and did not dare to say another word. It was impossible to leave any clues for Mia Kyle. She could only let the 2 men take her away. Mia Kyle bought 2 bottles of water. When she came back to where Karen Daly was, she could not see her. She thought that Karen Daly had gone to the bathroom, so she sat down and waited for her. But after waiting for a while, Karen Daly still has not returned. Mia Kyle felt that something was wrong. So she called Karen Daly's phone. When she called, all she heard was the machine's cold voice. "The number you have dialed has been turned off. Please dial later." She could not contact Karen Daly, so Mia Kyle quickly contacted the driver who sent them here to ask if Karen Daly had gone back to the car due to fatigue. But the driver said that Karen Daly did not return to the car, nor did he see Karen Daly. After hearing the driver's words, Mia Kyle rushed to the service center of the shopping mall and asked them to help her announce the search. After the broadcast, there was still no news of Karen Daly. Mia Kyle had been with Karen Daly for many days, so she knew that Karen Daly was not a person who would make people worry. When they separated, she would not turn her phone off, nor let anyone panic for her. After thinking for a while, a bad thought came to Mia Kyle's mind. Did something happen to Karen? Her sister-in-law was pregnant. If something happened to her, With this thought, Mia Kyle's mind was in a mess. It was she who brought her sister-in-law out. If something happened to her sister-in-law, she couldn't face her brother or the elders of the Kyle family. She felt even more sorry for the baby in her sister-in-law's belly. Mia Kyle was so anxious that she walked in circles around a few times. It was not until then that she realized she needed help. She immediately dialed Kevin Kyle's number. Hearing Kevin Kyle's voice, Mia Kyle said in a hurry, "Brother, I went shopping with Karen, but she suddenly disappeared. I couldn't find her, and her cell phone was turned off." Kevin Kyle's low voice came from the other end of the phone. "Tell me the time and place now." Mia Kyle was anxious, but she still reported the address clearly. When he heard it, he hung up and didn't give her another chance to say a word. Mia Kyle listened to his busy tone and felt both afraid and sad. What if something really did happen to her sister-in-law? Even if she exchanged her life for her sister-in-law's, she still would not forgive herself. What made her sad was that her brother had never hung up her phone like this before. It seemed that she could feel his anger on the other end of the phone. Mia Kyle bit her lips and thought of another person. She dialed the number of a contact. She was so anxious that she walked around in circles. Finally, he answered the phone. Neil Brown's voice was clear. What's the matter? Hearing his voice, Mia Kyle was so anxious that she burst into tears. Neil Brown, my sister-in-law is missing. What should I do? The person on the other side of the phone paused for a moment and answered, Tell me where you are and stay there. Don't go anywhere. When Mia Kyle called, Kevin Kyle was chairing an important meeting. Everyone looked at him answering the phone with his eyebrows slightly raised, and he hung up the phone with a gloomy face. The moment he hung up the phone, the higher-ups who were in the meeting room felt an unprecedented haze. Kevin Kyle's handsome face became gloomy and livid. Amelia Gray and Nick Black looked at each other at the same time. They felt that something bad was going to happen. Then, they heard Kevin Kyle's calm command. Assistant Gray, send the surveillance records of Sky Shopping Complex to me immediately. Assistant Black, contact the Immigration Department of Chatterton Town immediately. No one is allowed to go in or out of this town, not even a fly. While Kevin Kyle walked and commanded at the same time, he also called someone up. Give me the best and most powerful special forces in your army as soon as possible. I'm in a hurry to use them. Neil Brown said, I've already prepared the things you need. Let's go to the shopping mall to meet up first. Hanging up the phone, Kevin Kyle rushed to the shopping mall without stopping, even for a moment. In his car, he clenched his fists. There seemed to be no expression on his face, or it could be said that he looked calm, but only he knew how scared he was. When he heard Mia Kyle's news of Karen Daly's disappearance, his mind was blank for a few seconds. He couldn't hear any sound, nor see anything. When he was a bit calmer, he felt as if his heart was grabbed by a hand, which made it difficult for him to breathe. He didn't even dare to imagine what would happen to Karen Daly. If something happened to her or their child, then his world would never be bright again. But soon, he calmed himself down. Something had happened to Karen Daly. He was her husband. He had to find her as soon as possible. He would not allow her and the child to be hurt at all. Chapter 173. Karen Daly was carried into a van by two men. Before they could sit steadily in the van, the driver started the van and headed out. Karen Daly was blindfolded by them before she could even react. Her eyes could not see anything, which made her even more worried. Her heart beat so fast like it was about to jump out of her chest. Subconsciously, she held her round belly with both hands. If she was alone, she would never be as scared as she was now. But now she was not alone. She still had the child in her belly. She could stand being injured, but she would never let these people hurt her child. Her child would come to this world in 2 months, and the child would soon meet its parents. No matter what, she had to protect her child at all costs. Karen Daly could not see, so she could only rely on her sense of hearing to try to find out where she was. She felt that it was noisy around, and the car moved very slowly. They might be in the traffic on the main street of the city. After a long time, the car finally accelerated and moved fast. After about half an hour, the car suddenly shook violently. After jolting, the car finally stopped. Karen Daly got out of the car again and was dragged to a place. Before she could stand firm, someone said, I asked you to kidnap the girl from the Kyle family. Why did you kidnap a pregnant woman? Brother Caleb, this woman is pregnant with the child of Rovio's chairperson, Leo Kyle. Wouldn't she be worth more than that little girl? The one who spoke was the man who came here with Karen Daly. Karen Daly sensed that the man who was called Brother Caleb was approaching her. He walked around her and asked, You said she is pregnant with Leo Kyle's child? How can you be so sure of that? The security of Seaview Bay did their jobs too well. We couldn't follow them inside, so we waited outside for the little girl to come out. Today, when she came out, she brought along a pregnant woman, and she kept calling her sister-in-law. Before this, there was also news that Leo Kyle was married, so we were more sure of the fact that she is Leo Kyle's woman. The other man explained. Karen Daly was suddenly pinched by the chin, and the corners of her mouth twitched because of the pain. Then she heard Brother Caleb say, Is the child in your belly Leo Kyle's? After listening to the conversation between these three people, Karen Daly captured 2 keywords. One was the little girl of the Kyle family, and the other was that they were valuable. It seemed that their original plan was to kidnap Mia Kyle in order to blackmail the Kyle family. After understanding the situation, Karen Daly breathed a sigh of relief. As long as they didn't kidnap her for revenge, they wouldn't kill her nor her child unless there was no other way. So far, they were not sure about the relationship between her and Kevin Kyle, so they were not sure how much she was worth. They were waiting for her answer. Karen Daly finally understood why the Kyle family was so low-key. They never showed their faces in front of the camera, which saved a lot of unnecessary trouble. Mia Kyle had never shown her face in front of the camera as a member of the Kyle family. The name she used when filming was also her stage name, Polaris. Everyone knew that the leader of Rovio was Leo Kyle, the only successor of the Kyle family. However, few people knew that Leo Kyle had another name, Kevin. She had only known the truth of Kevin Kyle after being married to him. The irrelevant people outside did not matter. Karen Daly was thinking about how to answer when she heard someone say, Call Leo Kyle, with her cell phone. Kevin Kyle sat upright, with green veins appearing on his hands as he clenched them tightly. He looked straight with a scary gaze, and his whole body exuded a cold chill. He didn't say a word, but he had already analyzed the situation from the news he just received and excluded those who might hurt Karen Daly. As for Mr. Willis and Christine Daly in Beaufort City, he had spies with them, so they would not have the opportunity to hurt Karen Daly. As for Samuel Daly, who escaped, there were only his records of leaving the country, but no records of him entering the country. Samuel Daly would not dare to return to the country for the time being, so it was impossible for him to do this. If that was the case, who else would do something to Karen Daly? While thinking, he had arrived at the scene of the accident. Kevin Kyle got off the car, and Amelia Gray and Nick Black, who followed him, had also arrived. Nick Black said, "Boss, we've already sealed all the main traffic channels of Chatterton Town as per your instructions. It's absolutely impossible for anyone to get out." Amelia Gray handed over the tablet computer and clicked on the video she had just received. She said, "Boss, this is a video taken from the shopping mall's monitor. As of now, we can confirm that your wife was taken out of the shopping mall by 2 men. But these 2 men have been prepared, and none of the cameras have their faces. In the surveillance video, Karen Daly was wearing a white dress. She was caught in the middle by 2 men and forced to leave through the back door of the shopping mall. At the moment they went out, Karen Daly suddenly looked back. Just as she turned her head, the surveillance camera captured her face. She bit her lip tightly, looking nervous and scared. Seeing Karen Daly's reaction, Kevin Kyle felt his head go numb. He was so distressed. He had already made up his mind to protect her for the rest of his life and to never let her suffer. But brother. Mia Kyle ran over in a hurry. As of now, her face was also pale. She was both worried and afraid. Kevin Kyle gave her a cold look which made her tremble. Mia Kyle bit her lips and said, "It's my fault. I shouldn't have let sister-in-law go shopping with me. If we hadn't gone shopping, such a thing would never have happened. If anything bad happens to her, you..." Looking at Mia Kyle, Kevin Kyle said coldly, "I..." Mia Kyle pursed her lips. Emotions of grievance and fear flooded her heart. Since she was young, her brother would always punish her and scold her. However, those punishments and scoldings were all because he loved her dearly. But what he said earlier made Mia Kyle feel that he was a stranger to her. If anything happened to her sister-in-law or the child, her brother might twist her neck with one hand. Buzz. The phone suddenly rang. Kevin Kyle picked it up and saw that it was Karen Daly's number. He answered it quickly and heard Karen Daly's nervous voice coming from the phone. "Kevin Kyle, our child and I." Before Karen Daly could finish her sentence, her phone was grabbed by the kidnappers. Kevin Kyle knew that someone snatched the phone away. "Mr. Kyle, if your wife and your child are safe, prepare $100 million in cash to the place we have appointed." Kevin Kyle slightly narrowed his eyes and said slowly, word by word, "As long as you can guarantee their safety, I will give you a few million more." Chapter 174. "Then please go and prepare cash first, Mr. Kyle. We will contact you half an hour later and inform you to send the money to the place we have appointed. Don't play any tricks, otherwise." Hearing Karen Daly's scream, Kevin Kyle tightened his grip, holding his mobile phone. Blue veins appeared on his temples. "You want money? I'll give it to you. But if you dare to hurt her, I'll let your whole family die with you." Kevin Kyle's voice sounded not much different compared to what it did usually, but even the people around him who were familiar with him were scared, taking a few steps back. Mia Kyle was no exception. Hanging up the phone, Kevin Kyle's sharp eyes swept over the people behind him. Nick Black immediately stepped forward and said, "Boss, we have found the specific location of the signal. Do you want to take action immediately? Pass this down. Without my order, no one is allowed to act rashly. Contact the bank to prepare cash immediately and get the car to collect the money." Kevin Kyle immediately changed his way to save Karen Daly when he knew that the kidnapper was after money. Karen Daly was in their hands. He couldn't attack them by force, so he had to give the money to the kidnapper first. The most important thing was to rescue Karen Daly safely. As for other things, his lips curled up in an extremely cold arc, and his eyes flashed a kind of bloodthirstiness that had never appeared in his eyes. If they dared to touch his woman, he would let them live in purgatory for the rest of their lives, and there would never be a day when they could turn over. Mia Kyle wanted to follow him, but her brother didn't have time to keep eyes on her. She knew that she wouldn't be of much help if she went there, and she might become their burden. Over the years, the elders had never restricted her freedom. Most of the time, she was only accompanied by Jackie Ball because no one knew her identity. No one knew that she was a member of the Kyle family, so naturally, no one would want to kidnap her. Today, such a thing happened. She didn't know whether those people came for her or for Karen Daly. If they came for her, but kidnapped Karen Daly, then... Thinking of this, Mia Kyle was so sad that tears welled up in her eyes. However, she just held back her tears. It's not the time to cry. Just as Mia Kyle was sad, a car with a military sign stopped on the side of the road. The door of the driver's seat opened, and a man in a military uniform got off the car. He slammed the door shut. He was strong and tall, about 1.8 meters tall. He was in his 30s and had outstanding facial features. He has thick black eyebrows with a serious look. He was wearing a military uniform, but it made people feel that he was arrogant. Few people could show their righteousness and arrogance perfectly at the same time, but this man in military uniform did it. From a distance, Mia Kyle saw him. He was still the same as she remembered. He was so good-looking that she couldn't move her sight away from him. The man's eyes also fell on Mia Kyle at the instant. Unlike Mia Kyle, he looked away from her with a glance and no longer entangled with her sight. If it was another occasion, Mia Kyle would have rushed to him and thrown herself into his arms. She would have asked about him and told him about her yearning for him. However, on such an occasion today, she was both worried and scared. Especially when she saw him, she had never felt so wrong before. She bit her lips and wanted to cry. She hadn't seen him for more than a year. She had thought of countless scenes when she met him again, but she didn't expect to see him again under such circumstances. He took a few steps and came to her side. He raised his eyebrows slightly and said in a deep voice, "You called me because you want to cry and show it to me?" Mia Kyle looked at him and tears rolled down her cheeks. "Neil Brown, I'm very sad, anxious, and scared. Don't you know how to comfort me nicely?" Mia Kyle grew up under the care of her family. She had never encountered a kidnapping before. She was only 18 years old. How could she not be afraid? Neil Brown said, "I don't know." Mia Kyle was so angry that she stomped her feet. "Then what are you doing here?" Neil Brown said, "To see you cry." Hearing what Neil Brown said, Mia Kyle instantly forgot what she was worried about earlier. She gritted her teeth, rushed over, raised her foot, and stomped hard on Neil Brown's feet. "I'll let you see me crying." That wasn't enough. Mia Kyle clenched her fists and punched Neil Brown a few more times. She shouted while she punched him, "Even if you don't comfort me, how dare you laugh at me?" Mia Kyle's strength and anger were nothing to Neil Brown. If he wanted to avoid, he could easily do so. But he didn't move and let Mia Kyle vent her anger as much as she could. As they were fighting, Mia Kyle burst into tears again. "What should I do if something happened to my sister-in-law and baby?" Neil Brown pushed her away from his arms and wiped away the tears from her eyes with his rough fingers, which had been holding the gun for years. "If you cry like this, can your sister-in-law come back?" Mia Kyle was so angry at his words that she gritted her teeth and said, "Neil Brown, do you want me to blow you up?" Neil Brown asked, "With your tears?" Mia Kyle raised her hand and wiped her tears hard. She was so angry that she gritted through her teeth and said, "You." Neil Brown said, "How about me? Bite me 2 more times? Give me 2 punches, so that your sister-in-law can come back." Mia Kyle, "With your brother and me around, your sister-in-law will be fine." Looking at Mia Kyle's angry face, Neil Brown said this in a serious tone. As for Chatterton Town's safety, the Brown family had been stationed in Chatterton Town and controlled the military forces of Chatterton Town. Nowadays, the Kyle family's Rovio Corporation, Inc. had once again devoted all its strength to Chatterton Town, holding on to the economic lifeline of the city strongly. The Kyle family and the Brown family, one of whom was engaged in business and the other in politics, were both families who were very popular in their own fields. In Chatterton Town, no one dared to hurt them. Of course, those who didn't care about their lives were an exception. "Really?" Mia Kyle sniffed and said, "I know you're all very powerful, but I'm still worried. Get in the car." Neil Brown didn't answer her question. He dragged her into the car and said, "I'll send you back first. It will be the greatest help if you can save us more trouble." Mia Kyle, "But," Neil Brown said, "if there's another but, I'll throw you out of the window." Mia Kyle gritted her teeth and thought, "I must be blind. Otherwise, how could she like such an overbearing and hostile man?" Chapter 175. Karen Daly's eyes were blindfolded all the time. She could not tell where she was at this time, but from the cold breeze, she could feel that there should be a large cold storage facility near her. The kidnappers didn't give her a hard time, so she just sat there and didn't provoke them. Only in this way could she protect the child and herself well. Half an hour later, the kidnappers called Kevin Kyle again. When she heard Kevin Kyle's voice, Karen Daly said in a hurry, "Kevin?" This time, she just called out Kevin's name, and the kidnappers grabbed the phone back. She heard them say loudly, "Mr. Kyle, is the money ready?" Karen Daly couldn't hear what the other end of the phone said. She heard the kidnappers say, "Send the money to the trash can in front of number 20 on Glory Street, and leave immediately after that, if you dare to play tricks." Speaking of this, the kidnapper stretched out his hand and pulled Karen Daly's long hair hard. Karen Daly was in pain, but she didn't want to let Kevin Kyle worry about her anymore. She gritted her teeth and held her pain back, but didn't make a sound. Karen Daly didn't cry out in pain. This could not threaten Kevin Kyle. The chief of the kidnappers didn't think much about it and slapped Karen Daly in the face. Karen Daly's fair skin left a red palm print immediately. The kidnapper said again, "Mr. Kyle, I just gave her a slap. If you don't hurry up, I might have cut her belly." When he spoke, he even scratched Karen Daly's belly with a knife, which scared her so much that she stiffened and did not dare to move. After the threatening words, Karen Daly did not know what Kevin Kyle had said. The kidnapper handed Karen Daly her mobile phone again, and rarely he did not put on the speaker. "Karen, don't think about anything, don't do anything, and don't be afraid. I will soon come to you and the child, do you understand?" Kevin Kyle's voice passed from the phone earpiece to Karen Daly's ear. For the first time, his voice was not as low and sexy as it used to be, but was so firm and careful. Listening to Kevin Kyle's voice, for some reason, Karen Daly suddenly had an impulse to cry. She sniffed and nodded hard. Kevin, I won't be afraid, and the baby won't be afraid either. We will wait for you to come. After Karen Daly finished her words, the kidnappers took her cell phone away again and quickly turned it off. After hanging up the phone, the three kidnappers sat by the side and smoked. After smoking one cigarette after another, their hearts were getting more and more anxious. They knew very well that the woman, yes, Leo Kyle? They had never seen him, but they had a clear understanding of his legend. How could the decisive man in the business easily let them go? At this time, his wife was in their hands, and he had to follow their orders. Once they returned his wife to him, what kind of way would he take to deal with them? The three men seemed to think of the same thing at the same time, and they raised their heads at the same time. They looked at each other, and finally, their eyes fell on Karen Daly. With this idea in mind, the three of them were so nervous that they swallowed saliva. They had come to this point, so they must take the money. As for this woman, she had seen their faces, and if they went back to identify them, then they might be arrested no matter where they fled to with money. A kidnapper looked at his chief and asked, Brother Caleb, what should we do after we get the money? You tell me. Brother Caleb fixed his eyes on Karen Daly and raised his hand, motioned a sign to kill her. In order to prevent people from speaking and prevent the Kyle family from finding out who they were, the best way was to keep the woman in front of him silent forever and never speak again. Karen Daly's eyes were still blindfolded, so she didn't see the gesture that the kidnapper just made, but she could feel the strange look they cast on her. Especially when she felt that their eyes fell on her abdomen, she was so nervous that she was in cold sweats. She kept taking gulps to calm down. She prayed in her heart that Kevin Kyle must come quickly and protect their child. Brother Caleb, this is the woman of Leo Kyle. She is really good looking. Anyway, she will not live for a long time. Why don't you let us have a taste? As he spoke, he walked to her briefly, walked to her side, and looked down at her from a high position. Hearing someone lust over her, Karen Daly's heart, which had been calmed down for a long time, started to beat that fast again, which made her so nervous that she was in a cold sweat. Feeling the kidnapper approaching her, she instinctively shrank back, trying to keep a safe distance from him. However, just as she moved, her chin was pinched by someone. A particularly rough hand touched her face. This skin is fucking soft. I have never done such a delicate woman. Karen Daly suppressed the fear and tension in her heart. She waved her face away and stepping back again. However, she did not know that there was a wall behind her. She had only taken a step back and had already reached the dead end. The disgusting kidnapper caught up with her again. He pressed one hand on her shoulder and the other on her round belly. He maliciously pressed it down and said, If you try to avoid again, I'll dig out what's in your belly first. If you want money, we will give you all the money you want, but if you dare to hurt my baby, you can't escape even if you flee to the ends of the earth. You should know that better than me. Karen Daly was so scared that her heart was trembling, but she did not allow herself to be scared. She was a mother now, and she had to protect her own child. Before the kidnappers took any further action, she put her hands on her belly and said, You kidnapped me just for money, and I just want to live a good life. As long as you don't mess around, I promise that you can get the money, and I promise that Kevin Kyle won't blame you. Arjun, let her go, the chief of the kidnappers said. They were outlaws. Maybe they didn't take their lives as important as others, but they were human beings. The reason why they kidnapped her was that they wanted money and a better life. They couldn't take a risk. Brother Caleb? Asked another kidnapper. The chief of the kidnappers took a drag on the cigarette and put out the cigarette butt. He said, Lock her in the ice storage. Whether she is alive or not depends on her fate. It was at least minus 20 degrees Celsius in the cold storage room. She was not dressed for warmth, so if they threw Karen Daly into the cold storage, she would be frozen.